Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraft woman Deanne Barlow. Today, we mark the 105th anniversary of the Battle of Hill 60. After Allied forces landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula, on the 25th of April 1915, stalemate quickly set in. In an attempt to break the deadlock across the peninsula to capture the Narrows, a new Allied offensive was planned for early August. While the British conducted a major landing of troops at Suvla Bay, the Anzacs would launch diversionary attacks to the south. The battles that followed were some of the most costly and bitterly fought of the campaign. They ended in heartbreaking failure and produced heavy losses on both sides. Many sites of the bloody struggle would become all too familiar names in Australia and New Zealand: Lone Pine, The Neck, Chinook Bear and Hill 971. While it was clear that the attempted breakout had failed, it was still imperative that the Allies secure the ground between Suvla and Anzac. To achieve this, British troops from Suvla attacked the W Hills, while Australians, New Zealanders, British and Gurkha troops would attempt to capture Hill 60, a knoll at the northern end of the Surrey Bear Range. The attack was launched early on the 21st of August and met with some success, although the summit could not be taken. Further attempts were made with fresh troops on the 22nd and again on the 27th of August, but the Turks retained the high ground and summit. This was one of the last offensive actions on Gallipoli. Of the nearly 4,000 Allied troops who made the attack, some 1,300 became casualties. The 500 Australians involved suffered 173 casualties. Hill 60 marked the end of the August offensive, which proved a costly failure. With the onset of winter, the Gallipoli campaign was finally abandoned in December 1915. We warmly welcome Mr. John King, President, Returned and Service League of Australia, ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of the ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join with the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tribute will now be laid at the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Stephen Grimsley. Stephen Grimsley was born in London in March 1897, the fourth of 6 children of Stephen and Patty Grimsley. He and his siblings attended school in the Finsbury Shoreditch area of London. The 1911 census records that Stephen was an unemployed messenger boy. The following year, he and his elder brother William migrated to Australia while the rest of the family remained in London. Stephen was 15, his brother 18. The boys initially lived at Tallangatta in Victoria, near Albury-Wodonga, where they found farm work and labour jobs. Not long after, they moved to Sydney and were living with an aunt in Drummoy. While the war broke out in August 1914, William joined up immediately and served as a gunner with the artillery. Underage, Stephen cooled his heels, but not for long, putting his age up from 17 to 18 years and 3 months. Stephen signed up on the last day of 1914. Allotted to the 3rd Reinforcements for the 13th Australian Infantry Battalion, he completed his basic military training, and on the 11th of February 1915, he departed Sydney aboard the troop ship Changchun, bound for Egypt. Having missed the initial landing on Gallipoli, Stephen joined his battalion at Anzac Cove just a week later, on the 30th of April. He soon would later remark in the letter home that on Gallipoli, you carry your life in our hands 24 hours a day. One is always within the sound of rifles, and the unceasing ding gets on one's nerves. But after being in the trenches a few days, all that doesn't disturb a man's sleep, unless he has cold feet. After a few weeks, Stephen was hospitalised with influenza, but soon returned to duty where he had several lucky escapes, although suffering minor wounds. On one occasion, he was struck by multiple shrapnel balls, which tore through some photos in his pocket. On another occasion, a large Turkish shell landed not 20 yards away, but Stephen wasn't hurt, souveniring a large shell fragment that had lodged in his boot. On the night of the 7th and 8th of June, he caught a bullet in the right leg below the knee. Evacuated on a hospital ship, Stephen was surprised to find his brother Will, also aboard, also wounded in the leg. The pair landed in Egypt, and Stephen spent 4 weeks recovering in hospital and convalescent homes. Recovered, he returned to duty on Gallipoli in mid-July. Things were gearing up for the new offensive. On the 6th of August, a new Allied offence began on the peninsula. While some ground gained, it soon became clear that no breakthrough would occur. In order to secure the high ground between the Anzac position and the new one at Suva Bay, a series of attacks went ahead later in the month. The 13th Battalion was part of a combined force of British, Indian, New Zealand and Australian troops that assaulted Hill 60 on the 21st of August. It was soon during this attack that Stephen Grimsley was killed. Corporal Newton, a comrade from D Company, said that Grimsley had been last seen lying dead on the first ridge they crossed. Later that night, shell fire set fire to the scrub on the ridge and a number of wounded men perished there. This may also explain why Stephen's remains were never identified and is now commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial. He was 18 years old. Just a month after his death, the portrait photo damaged by the shrapnel from one of Stephen's prior lucky escapes was published in the Daily Telegraph in Sydney. Readers did not know yet that his luck has since run out. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photo is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Stephen Grimsley, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we of those grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemned. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.